Listen up, because I'm not here to waste your time. I'm Elon Musk, and I've built rockets that pierce the heavens, cars that defy gravity, and tunnels that rewrite the rules of cities. But let me tell you something you didn't expect. The way I've captured the world's imagination, yes, including the hearts of women, isn't about being the loudest guy in the room, the flashiest, or the one throwing around big promises like confetti at a parade. No, it's about something far more powerful. It's about presence. It's about standing so firmly in your own mission that people, especially women, can't help but orbit around you, drawn in like stars to a black hole. And here's the kicker: you don't even have to try. Let me paint you a picture, and I want you to feel this, because it's going to hit you right in the core. Imagine you're at a crowded event. The room's buzzing, music's thumping, people are laughing, drinks are clinking. There's that guy in the corner shouting his accomplishments, waving his arms like he's directing traffic, desperate for every eye to lock onto him. Then there's you. Maybe you're standing there with a glass of water. Maybe you're just leaning against the wall, watching the chaos unfold. You're not yelling. You're not begging for attention. You're just there, solid, unfazed. And then it happens. A woman across the room catches your eye. Her gaze lingers not for a second, not for two, but long enough that you feel it in your bones. You might shrug it off, think it's nothing, just a random glance. But let me tell you what she saw. She didn't see your suit, your car, or how many zeros are in your bank account. She saw something most men don't even know they have: a quiet, unshakable presence that screams, I don't need your validation, because I'm building something bigger than this moment. M. Now, I'm not here to talk about pickup lines or dating apps. Those are distractions, small potatoes in the grand scheme of things. I'm talking about something universal, something that works whether you're trying to land a deal, launch a rocket, or make someone's heart skip a beat. It's the same principle that got SpaceX off the ground when everyone said we'd crash and burn. It's the same principle that kept Tesla alive when we were bleeding cash faster than a startup in a sci-fi flick. It's about standing your ground, knowing your mission, and letting the world come to you. And women, they feel that they're wired to notice the guy who doesn't scramble, who doesn't beg, who doesn't need to fill the silence with noise just to feel like he exists. Let's get real for a second. I've been in rooms where billionaires, celebrities, and so-called alpha males are peacocking like they're auditioning for a reality show. And I've seen how women react not to the noise, but to the one guy who's calm, who's focused, who's got that glint in his eye that says, I'm here for something bigger than this party. That's what I've learned, not just from building companies that change the world, but from watching how people, especially women, gravitate toward purpose. You think I got where I am by chasing approval, by explaining myself to every critic who said I'd fail? No way. I got here by focusing on the mission, colonizing Mars, electrifying the planet, rewiring how we move, and letting the results speak for themselves. And here's the secret I'm handing you on a silver platter. That same focus, that same restraint is what makes you magnetic to the people who matter. Now, I know what you're thinking. Elon, come on, you're talking about building spaceships. I'm just trying to get through a date without screwing it up. Fair enough. But hear me out. Whether you're launching a rocket or sitting across from a woman at a coffee shop, the principle is the same. Most guys, most people make the same mistake. They overdo it. They talk too much, try too hard, give away every thought in their head like it's a fire sale. They think attraction is about piling on more more compliments, more texts, more proof they're worthy. But let me tell you, that's like trying to land a Falcon 9 by throwing more fuel at it. It doesn't work. You'll crash. The real trick is subtraction. Take away the noise, take away the neediness, take away the urge to fill every second of silence with words. Because in that silence, in that space, you leave empty, something magical happens. She starts to wonder, and that wonder, that's the spark. That's what pulls her in. When I was starting SpaceX, people laughed at me. They said, Elon, you're crazy. Private rockets, you'll bankrupt yourself. I didn't argue. I didn't send them PowerPoint presentations explaining why I was right. I just kept working, kept pushing, kept my eyes on the stars, literally. And you know what? People started paying attention. Investors, engineers, even the skeptics, they couldn't look away. Why? Because I wasn't begging for their approval. I was too busy building something that mattered. Women work the same way. They don't fall for the guy who's shouting, look at me. They fall for the guy who's so focused on his mission that they have to fight to get his attention. Let's talk about you for a second. Think about the last time you felt like you had to prove yourself to someone. Maybe it was a date, maybe it was a crush, maybe it was just a moment where you felt invisible. You probably did what most people do. You tried harder, you texted faster, you explained yourself until you were blue in the face. And what happened? The more you gave, the less they cared. That's not a coincidence, that's human nature. When you hand over everything, your time, your attention, your emotions, without making someone earn it, you're telling them it's not valuable. You're telling them you're not valuable. And that's where most guys go wrong. They think attraction is about giving more when it's really about giving less, not out of games, not out of cruelty, but out of confidence in who you are. I've been there. Early on, when I was younger, I made those mistakes. I'd meet someone and I'd think, okay, I need to show her I'm smart, I'm driven, I'm worth her time. I'd talk too much, plan too much, try to impress her with my big ideas about changing the world. And you know what? It backfired. The more I tried, the less she cared. It was like watching a rocket fizzle out on the launch pad. But then I figured it out. I realized that the less I chased, the more she chased. The less I explained, the more she wondered. The less I tried to prove myself, the more she saw me. And that's when I started to understand attraction isn't about what you say. It's about what you don't say. It's about the space you create for her to step into. Let me give you a real world example. Back when we were getting Tesla off the ground, we were on the brink of failure. I mean, we were burning through cash like a wildfire in California. Everyone, investors, employees, the media was waiting for us to crash. And I had a choice. I could have gone out there, begged for more money, pleaded with the world to believe in us, but I didn't. I stayed focused. I worked 100-hour weeks, slept on the factory floor, and kept my eyes on the goal, building cars that would change how we drive. And you know what happened? People started to notice. They didn't just see a company, they saw a mission. They saw a guy who wasn't begging for approval, who wasn't apologizing for the chaos. They saw someone who believed in something bigger than himself. And that belief, that's what made them want to be part of it. Women are no different. They're not looking for the guy who's got all the answers or who's tripping over himself to impress them. They're looking for the guy who's got a fire in his belly, who's so focused on his mission, whether it's building a company, creating art, or just living a life that matters, that they have to work to get a piece of him. That's what makes you stand up. That's what makes her lean in, tilt her head, and wonder, who is this guy? And here's the part that's going to blow your mind. You're already that guy. You just don't know it yet. Let's get practical because I'm not here to just inspire you. I want you to walk away with something you can use. The next time you're talking to a woman, whether it's a date, a friend, or someone you just met, resist the urge to fill every gap in the conversation. Don't rush to answer her questions like you're on a game show. Don't try to prove you're interesting by telling her your life story in the first 5 minutes. Instead, lean back, listen, let her talk. And when she asks you something, give her a short, calm answer, maybe even a smile. Let the silence hang for a second longer than feels comfortable. Because in that silence, she's not just hearing you, she's feeling you. She's wondering what's going on in your head. And that wonder, that's what keeps her hooked. I remember a moment early in my career, back when I was pitching X.com to investors. I was in a room full of suits, all of them skeptical, waiting for me to oversell, to beg for their money. I didn't. I laid out the vision calmly, clearly, without fluff. I let the idea speak for itself. And when they pushed back, when they tried to poke holes, I didn't panic. I didn't over-explain. I just looked them in the eye and said, this is where the world's going. You can be part of it or not. Half the room was stunned. The other half was sold. Why? Because I wasn't chasing their approval. I was chasing a vision. And that's what women notice too. Not the guy who's trying to win them over, but the guy who's already won himself. So, ladies, let me talk to you directly for a second. You know that feeling when you meet someone who doesn't need you to like them? Someone who's so grounded in their own world, their own purpose, that you can't help but want to be part of it? That's the guy I'm talking about. And here's the secret. You can be that person too. You don't have to chase attention. You don't have to prove your worth to everyone who walks by. When you live for something bigger, whether it's your career, your art, your dreams, you become the one people can't stop thinking about. You become the one they chase. And that's not just attractive, it's unstoppable. Now, I'm not saying you should be cold or distant. I'm not saying you should play games or pretend you don't care. What I'm saying is be so focused on your mission, so anchored in your purpose that you don't need anyone else to validate you. When you're building something real, whether it's a company, a family, or a life that matters, you don't have time to beg for approval. And that's what makes people notice. That's what makes women lean in. That's what makes the world turn its head and say, who is this person and why can't I stop thinking about them? Let's wrap this first piece with a challenge. Think about the last time you felt like you had to prove yourself to a woman, to a friend, to the world. What did you do? Did you talk faster? Did you chase harder? Did you give away more of yourself than you should have? Now imagine this instead. The next time you feel that urge, you stop, you breathe, you lean back and let the moment hang. Let her wonder. Let the world wonder. Because when you stop chasing, when you stop begging, when you start living for something bigger than the moment, that's when you become magnetic. That's when you become the person no one can forget. And that, my friends, is just the beginning of how you conquer hearts without even trying. All right, let's dive straight into the next piece of this puzzle. I'm Elon Musk, and if you think I got to where I am by spilling every detail of my plans to anyone who asked, you're dead wrong. Whether it's launching a rocket to Mars or making someone's heart race, there's one thing I've learned: mystery is your greatest ally. Not the kind of mystery where you're hiding something shady, but the kind where you hold back just enough to make people lean in, to make them wonder, to make them chase the idea of you. And ladies, this isn't just about how I've turned heads, it's about how you can wield that same power, how you can become the enigma that no one can stop thinking about. Let's get to it, because this is where the game changes. Picture this: you're sitting across from someone, maybe a date, maybe a friend, maybe someone you're just getting to know. They're asking you questions, probing, trying to figure you out. Most people would jump at the chance to lay it all out there, to tell their whole story, to prove they're interesting or worthy. But what if you didn't? What if, instead of giving them the full blueprint of your life, you dropped a single, intriguing hint and let the silence do the rest? That's what I did when I started SpaceX. People would ask, Elon, how are you going to compete with NASA? How are you going to build rockets when you've got no track record? I didn't give them a 50-page business plan. I'd say something like, we're going to Mars. It's not a question of if, but when. Then I'd stop. I'd let them sit with it. And you know what? They couldn't stop thinking about it. They'd come back asking more, digging deeper, because I gave them just enough to spark their curiosity and nothing more. That's the power of mystery. It's not about being secretive or playing hard to get. It's about understanding that the human mind is wired to chase what it can't fully grasp. When I was building Tesla, we were up against giants, Ford, GM, companies with billions in the bank and decades of history. I didn't go out there shouting about every detail of our tech or begging people to believe in us. I showed them a prototype, let them see the vision, a car that could go 200 miles on a single charge, um, faster than anything on the road, and then I shut up. I let the car speak, I let the idea linger, and people, they went crazy. They wanted to know more. They wanted to be part of it. Women work the same way. They don't want the guy who hands them his entire life story on a silver platter. They want the one who gives them a glimpse of something extraordinary and then makes them work to uncover the rest. Let's talk about why this matters, especially for you, the women in the audience. You've been told your whole life to be open, to share, to make people feel comfortable. And sure, that's great for building trust, for creating connection. But there's a line. When you give too much too soon, you're not just giving away your story, you're giving away your power. You're telling the world, here's everything I am, take it or leave it. And you know what happens? They take it and they move on because there's nothing left to discover, nothing left to chase. I've seen it in business and I've seen it in life. When I started Neuralink, people wanted to know every detail. How are you going to connect brains to computers? What's the timeline? I gave them just enough. We're building a future where your mind can talk to machines. That's it. No timelines, no tech specs, just a vision. And that vision stuck in their heads like a song they couldn't stop humming. Now, apply that to you. Think about the last time you met someone who intrigued you. Maybe it was a guy, maybe it was a friend, maybe it was someone at work. What made them stick in your mind? I'll bet it wasn't because they told you their entire life story in one sitting. It was because they left you with questions. They said something that made you think, wait, what do they mean by that? Or there's more to this person than they're letting on. That's the spark of attraction. That's what keeps you up at night, replaying the conversation, trying to piece them together. And here's the truth: you can be that person. You can be the one who leaves people wanting more, not because you're hiding, but because you're so focused on your own mission, your own version of colonizing Mars, that they have to work to keep up. Let's get tactical, because I'm not here to just throw ideas at you. I want you to walk away with something you can use. The next time you're in a conversation, whether it's with a potential partner, a friend, or even a colleague, don't feel the need to fill every gap. If they ask you about your dreams, don't lay out your 5-year plan. Say something like, I'm working on something big, something that's going to change how I see the world. Then stop, smile, Let them ask the next question. When they push for details, give them a piece, not the whole puzzle. Let's say you're passionate about your career. Maybe you're an artist, a coder, a teacher. Don't tell them every project you've ever done. Say, I'm creating something that's going to make people feel something new. Let that hang. Let them wonder what new means. Let them chase the idea of you. I learned this the hard way. Early in my career, I used to overshare. I'd meet someone and I'd think, okay, I need to show them I'm worth their time. I'd talk about my plans for PayPal, my ideas for revolutionizing finance, my dreams of space travel. And you know what? People's eyes would glaze over. Not because they didn't care, but because I gave them too much. I didn't give them space to imagine, to fill in the blanks themselves. It was like handing someone a finished book instead of letting them write the ending. But when I started holding back, when I started saying less and letting the vision speak for itself, everything changed. People leaned in, they asked questions, they wanted to be part of the story. And women, they noticed. They'd say things like, there's something about you, Elon. I can't figure you out. And that's when I knew mystery isn't just a tactic, it's a force. Now, ladies, this isn't just about dating. This is about how you show up in the world when you walk into a room. You don't need to announce who you are or what you've done. You don't need to prove you're smart or talented or worthy. You just need to be so grounded in your own purpose, your own mission, that people can't help but notice. Think about it. When I announced Starlink, I didn't go out there with a 500-page report on satellite orbits. I said, we're going to blanket the planet with internet from space. That was enough. People filled in the rest with their own imagination. You can do the same. Whether you're building a career, chasing a dream, or just figuring out who you are, don't give it all away. Let people wonder. Let them chase the idea of you. Here's where it gets interesting. Mystery isn't just about what you say, it's about what you do. It's about the way you carry yourself when no one's watching. When I was sleeping on the factory floor at Tesla, when we were down to our last few million, I wasn't thinking about who was watching me. I was thinking about the mission, getting those cars on the road, proving electric could outrun gas. But you know what? People noticed. They saw the grit, the focus, the refusal to quit. And women, they feel that too. They're drawn to the person who's so absorbed in their purpose that they don't need to look around for applause. That's what makes you unforgettable, not the words you say, but the life you live. Let's talk about the flip side, because I know you've seen it. You've met people who overshare, who try too hard to impress. Maybe it's the guy who tells you his entire resume on the first date, or the friend who's always fishing for compliments. What happens? You tune out, you lose interest. Why? Because there's no space for you to imagine, no room for you to invest. It's like being handed a puzzle that's already solved. Now think about the people who've stuck in your mind, the ones who left you wondering, who gave you just enough to keep you curious. That's the power you can harness. That's the power I've used, not just to build companies, but to make people want to be part of my world. So here's your challenge. The next time you're tempted to explain yourself, to justify your choices, to prove you're enough, stop, take a breath, say less than you want to, let the other person fill the space. If they ask about your passions, give them a spark, not the whole fire. If they push for more, let them work for it. Because when you hold back, when you let the mystery of who you are linger, you're not just creating attraction, you're creating respect. And respect is what makes people stay, what makes them chase, what makes them see you as someone extraordinary. I'll leave you with this. When I first pitched the idea of reusable rockets, people thought I was nuts. They wanted details, timelines, guarantees. I didn't give them any of that. I gave them a vision. Rockets that land like helicopters, making space travel as routine as a cross-country flight. And that vision, it stuck. It made people dream. It made them want to be part of something bigger. You can do that too. You don't need to be building rockets. You just need to be building your dreams, your purpose, your life. And when you do that, when you hold back just enough to let people wonder, you become the one they can't stop thinking about. That's the power of mystery. That's how you conquer hearts, not by giving everything away, but by making them want to discover you. All right, let's keep this rocket moving. I'm Elon Musk, and I'm not here to sugarcoat things or hold your hand. I'm here to tell you something that's taken me years of crashing rockets, burning through cash, and staring failure in the face to figure out the real secret to winning, not just in business, not just in life, but in the way you pull people toward you. Like gravity is self-mastery. It's not about having all the answers or being the smoothest talker in the room. It's about owning yourself so completely that no one, not even the most captivating woman, can shake you from your core. And ladies, This isn't just about how I've built companies or turned heads. It's about how you can become the kind of woman who commands respect, who draws people in, who leaves a mark no one can erase. Buckle up, because this is where you learn to steer your own ship. Let's start with the truth that hits like a punch. The world will test you. It'll test your patience, your resolve, your ability to stay calm when everything's screaming at you to react. When I was trying to get SpaceX off the ground, literally we had 3 rocket launches fail in a row. 3. Each one was a fireball, a multi-million-dollar disaster, and a reminder that the world thought I was out of my mind. Investors were pulling out, the media was circling like vultures, and my own team was starting to doubt. You know what I did? I didn't scream, I didn't beg, I didn't try to convince anyone I was right. I went back to the drawing board, worked the problem, and stayed focused on the mission, getting humanity to Mars. That's self-mastery, not letting the chaos around you dictate who you are or what you do. And here's the thing, women notice that. They're drawn to the person who doesn't flinch when the world tries to knock them down. Now, let's bring this closer to home. Think about the last time someone pushed your buttons. Maybe it was a date who went silent for no reason, or a friend who threw a subtle jab to see if you'd bite. Maybe it was a coworker trying to get under your skin. What did you do? If you're like most people, you reacted, you texted back too fast, you got defensive, you tried to smooth things over to keep the peace, and what happened? You felt smaller. You gave away a piece of yourself, and they walked away with the upper hand. I've been there. Early on, when I was younger, I'd meet someone I liked, and if they pulled back, went quiet, canceled plans, played it cool, I'd panic. I'd think, I need to fix this. I need to show them I'm worth their time. I'd send another message, make a grand gesture, try to prove I was enough. And you know what? It never worked. The more I chased, the less they cared. It was like watching a rocket veer off course. Every move I made just pushed them further away. That's when I learned self-mastery isn't about controlling the other person. It's about controlling yourself. It's about staying steady when they try to rattle you, staying focused when they try to distract you, staying true to your mission when they try to pull you off track. When we were on the brink of bankruptcy at Tesla, I had every reason to lose it. The press was calling us a failure, shareholders were screaming, and we were weeks away from running out of cash. But I didn't let it break me. I slept on the factory floor, worked 20-hour days, and kept my eyes on the goal, building a car that would change the world. That focus, that refusal to let the noise take over, is what pulled us through. And it's the same thing that pulls people towards you, not just women, but anyone who crosses your path. They see someone who's unshakable, and that's magnetic. Ladies, this is where you come in. You know that feeling when you meet someone who seems to have it all together? Not because they're perfect, not because they're loud or flashy, but because they're so grounded in who they are that nothing seems to faze them? That's the kind of woman you can be. The world, especially in relationships, will test you. A guy might pull back to see if you'll chase. A friend might push your boundaries to see if you'll bend. A colleague might try to take credit for your work to see if you'll fight back. The old you might have reacted, might have tried to fix it, might have given in to keep the peace. But the new you, the one who's mastered herself, you don't flinch, you don't chase, you don't beg. You hold your ground and you let the world come to you. Let's get tactical, because I'm not here to just inspire you. I want you to walk away with tools you can use. The next time someone tests you, whether it's a guy who's suddenly distant or a friend who's trying to guilt trip, you don't react. Take a beat, breathe. Ask yourself, what's my mission right now? Maybe it's building your career, chasing your dreams, or just living a life that makes you proud. Whatever it is, keep your eyes on that. If he doesn't text back for a day, don't fire off 3 messages to check in. Let it sit. If she tries to make you feel small, don't defend yourself with a long explanation. Smile, nod, and keep moving forward. That's self-mastery. Choosing your response instead of letting someone else choose it for you. I'll give you an example from my own life. When I started Neuralink, the idea of connecting brains to computers sounded like science fiction. People laughed, rolled their eyes, said it was impossible. I could have spent hours arguing, explaining the tech, proving my point, but I didn't. I said, we're doing this, it's going to happen. Then I got back to work. That silence, that refusal to engage in the noise made people curious. It made them respect me. And in relationships, it's the same. When someone tries to pull you into their drama, when they test your patience or your worth, the most powerful thing you can do is stay calm, stay focused, let them see that you're not here to play their game, you're playing your own. Now, let's talk about why this matters for you. the women in the audience. Society tells you to be nurturing, to be available, to make everyone feel comfortable. And that's beautiful. It's part of what makes you powerful. But there's a trap there. If you're always giving, always smoothing things over, always putting others first, you risk losing yourself. You risk becoming the person who's taken for granted, the one who's always there but never truly seen. I've seen it in business. Companies that give away too much, too many discounts, too many promises end up undervalued. Tesla didn't become what it is by giving away cars for free. We made people want it, made them see the value, made them work to be part of the vision. You can do the same with your time, your energy, your heart, make people earn it. Not because you're cruel, but because you know your worth. Here's where it gets real. Think about the last time you felt like you had to prove yourself to someone. Maybe it was a guy who seemed out of reach, or a friend who made you feel like you weren't enough. You probably felt that urge to do more, to be funnier, smarter, more available, and maybe you did it. Maybe you sent that extra text, made that extra effort, tried to show them you were worth their time. And what happened? They pulled back, they lost interest. Why? Because you gave them everything and they didn't have to work for it. You broke the spell, you took away the challenge. And humans, men, women, everyone are wired to value what they have to earn. I learned this building Hyperloop. When I first shared the idea, a transportation system that could get you from LA to San Francisco in 30 minutes, people were skeptical. They wanted every detail, every blueprint, every guarantee. I didn't give it to them. I dropped the concept, open sourced it, and said, figure it out. And you know what? People did. They chased it, they built on it. They wanted to be part of it because it wasn't handed to them. In relationships, it's the same. When you give someone just enough to spark their interest, your passion, your focus, your strength, and then let them come to you, they value you more, they respect you more. And respect is the foundation of attraction. So here's your challenge. The next time you feel that urge to react, to fix, to prove yourself, stop, ask yourself, am I acting from strength or am I acting from fear? If it's fear, fear of losing someone, fear of not being enough, let it go. Focus on your mission. Maybe it's your career, your art, your family, or just becoming the best version of yourself. Whatever it is, let that be your North Star. When you stay true to that, when you master yourself, you become the kind of woman who doesn't just attract attention, you command it. You become the one people can't stop thinking about, not because you're loud or flashy, but because you're unshakable. I'll leave you with this. When we finally landed a Falcon 9 booster back on Earth after years of failures, it wasn't because I begged the world to believe in us. It was because I believed in the mission, stayed focused, and refused to let the setbacks break me. That's self-mastery. That's what makes you stand out in a world full of noise. And that's what makes people, men, women, everyone see you as someone extraordinary. So, ladies, don't just chase attraction, master yourself. Because when you do, the world doesn't just notice you, it follows you. All right, let's keep the momentum going. I'm Elon Musk, and I've learned a thing or two about cutting through the noise, whether it's the chatter of doubters telling me I can't colonize Mars, or the buzz of a crowded room where everyone's shouting to be heard. Today I'm going to let you in on a secret that's helped me build empires and leave a mark on people's minds. Silence is your ultimate weapon. Not the kind of silence where you're hiding or sulking, but the kind that carries weight, that forces people to stop and notice, that makes them lean in because they can't help themselves. And ladies, this isn't just about how I've turned heads or built rockets. It's about how you can wield silence to become the kind of woman who commands attention without saying a word. Let's dive in because this is where you learn to let the world come to you. Picture this. You're in a moment of tension. Maybe you're on a date and the conversation hits a lull. Maybe you're in a meeting and someone's trying to push your buttons. Maybe it's a friend who's gone quiet, waiting to see if you'll chase them. The air feels heavy, and every instinct in you is screaming to fill the gap, to say something, to fix it, to make it comfortable again. Most people crack. They start talking, explaining, justifying, anything to break the awkwardness. But what if you didn't? What if you just sat there, calm, composed, letting the silence hang like a perfectly timed pause in a symphony? That's what I did when we were fighting to keep Tesla alive. The press was tearing us apart, saying we'd never deliver a single car. Investors were calling, demanding answers. Instead of scrambling to defend myself, I stayed quiet. I let the results speak. Model S on the road, blowing past gas-powered cars with 250 miles of range. That silence, that refusal to fill the void with excuses, made people pay attention. It made them respect me. Now, let's bring this to you. Silence isn't just about not talking, it's about trusting yourself so deeply that you don't need to prove anything. When I started SpaceX, everyone wanted me to explain how a guy with no aerospace degree was going to build rockets. I could have spent hours debating, laying out every detail of our plans. Instead, I'd say something simple: we're going to make space travel affordable. Then I'd stop. I'd let them sit with it. And you know what? That silence drove them crazy. They'd come back with more questions, more curiosity, because I didn't give them everything up front. Women, you can do this too. When someone, maybe a guy you're interested in, maybe a friend testing your boundaries, tries to pull you into their game, don't bite, don't rush to fill the space with words or actions. Let the silence do the talking. Let them feel the weight of your presence. Here's why this works. The human brain hates uncertainty. When you give someone just enough to spark their interest, a hint of your passion, a glimpse of your strength, and then go quiet, they can't help but fill in the blanks. They start wondering, what's she thinking? Why isn't she chasing me? What's so important that she's not tripping over herself to impress me? That's what happened when I announced the Boring Company. People were like, tunnels? Really, Elon? I didn't give them a 500-page report on urban congestion. I said, we're digging tunnels to revolutionize transportation. Then I shut up. The world went wild, speculating, imagining, chasing the idea. In relationships, it's the same. When you don't overshare, when you don't rush to explain yourself, you create a space where people, especially men, start chasing you. They start imagining who you are, what you want, and why you're so unshakably calm. Let's get real for a second. Think about the last time you felt that urge to break the silence. Maybe a guy didn't text back for a few hours, and you thought, I need to say something, anything to keep this going. Or maybe someone criticized you, and you felt this burning need to defend yourself. I've been there. Early on, when I was building X.com, I'd get into arguments with investors who didn't get the vision. I'd talk myself hoarse, trying to convince them I was right. And you know what? It was a waste of energy. The more I explained, the less they listened. But when I started holding back, when I let my actions merging X.com into PayPal, selling it for billions, speak louder than my words, everything changed. People stopped doubting and started following. Women noticed this too. They're drawn to the person who doesn't need to fill every moment with noise, who trusts themselves enough to let the silence speak. Ladies, this is your power. You've been taught to be warm, to be open, to make everyone feel at ease. Um, and that's a gift, don't get me wrong. But there's a difference between being kind and being a doormat. When you're always the one smoothing things over, always the one texting first, always the one explaining yourself, you're giving away your power. You're telling the world, I need you to like me. But when you embrace silence, when you let people wonder about you, you're saying, I'm enough. Figure me out if you want to be part of my world. That's what I did with Starlink. When people asked how we'd get internet to every corner of the planet, I didn't give them a lecture on satellite orbits. I said, we're launching thousands of satellites. Watch. And they did. They watched, they wondered, and they wanted in. Let's get tactical, because I'm not here to just talk big ideas. I want you to walk away with something you can use right now. The next time you're in a situation where you feel the pressure to speak, to fix, to prove yourself, don't. If a guy goes quiet, don't send a follow-up text asking everything okay. If someone pushes you to explain yourself, don't launch into a defense. Try this instead. Take a deep breath, smile, and say something short like, I'm good, you? Then let it sit. Let them feel the silence. If you're on a date and the conversation stalls, don't rush to fill it with a story about your day. Look him in the eye, take a sip of your coffee, and let the moment hang. You'll be amazed at how people react. They'll lean in, they'll start talking, they'll chase you because your silence tells them you're not desperate for their attention. I'll give you a story from my own life. When we were launching the first Falcon 1, the pressure was insane. We were a small team, no one believed in us, and every launch was make or break. After our first failure, the media came at me, asking, what went wrong? Are you giving up? I could have spent hours explaining the technical details, defending our work. Instead, I said, we learned something, we're launching again. That was it. No apologies, no excuses. The silence that followed was deafening, but it worked. People started paying attention, not because I gave them everything, but because I gave them just enough to keep them curious. In relationships, it's the same. When someone tries to test you by pulling back, by going silent, by making you doubt yourself, don't react. Stay calm, stay quiet. Let them come back to you, because they will. Here's the deeper truth. Silence isn't just a tactic, it's a statement. It says, I'm in control of myself. I don't need to chase your approval. And that's what makes you magnetic. When I announced the Cybertruck, I didn't need to hype it up with a big speech. I showed the world a bulletproof truck that looked like it came from a sci-fi movie, and I let it speak for itself. The internet exploded. People couldn't stop talking about it. Women, you can do this too. You don't need to announce your worth to the world. You don't need to prove you're smart or funny or beautiful. Just be those things, live them. Let your actions, your confidence, your calm silence do the talking. When you do, people, men, friends, colleagues will notice, they'll wonder, they'll chase. So here's your challenge. The next time you feel that itch to break the silence, to fix the moment, to make someone comfortable, stop. Ask yourself, what if I just let this be? Let the other person feel the weight of their own actions. Let them wonder what you're thinking. Let them chase the idea of you. Because when you master silence, you're not just holding back, you're holding power. You're saying, I'm not here to beg, I'm here to build something extraordinary. And that, ladies, is what makes you unforgettable. That's what makes people, especially men, see you as someone they can't let go of. So go out there, embrace the silence, and watch the world lean in. Here we go again, and I'm not slowing down. I'm Elon Musk, and I've spent my life chasing things most people call impossible, putting humans on Mars, reinventing transportation, wiring brains to computers. But let me tell you something that's just as critical as any rocket launch. The biggest risk you'll ever face isn't losing someone else's attention, it's losing yourself in the process of trying to keep it. If you want to be the kind of woman who doesn't just turn heads but changes the game, you've got to stop being afraid of people walking away. Instead, start fearing the moment you compromise who you are to hold on to them. This is about owning your power, staying true to your mission, and letting the world chase you. Ladies, this one's for you. Let's dive in and shake things up. Imagine you're in a high stakes moment. Maybe it's a relationship where someone's pulling back, going quiet, making you second guess yourself. Maybe it's a job where you're bending over backward to impress a boss who barely notices. Maybe it's a friend who's taking you for granted. Your gut says, do something, fix it, don't let them slip away. That's what most people do. They chase, they plead, they sacrifice pieces of themselves to keep the connection alive. But let me tell you something I learned the hard way. The second you start chasing someone else's approval, you're not just losing them, you're losing you. And that's a price too high for any relationship, any job, any moment. Let's go back to 2008 when Tesla was on the edge of collapse. We were burning through cash millions a week, and the world was betting against us. The easy move would have been to grovel, to beg investors for more money, to compromise the vision just to keep the lights on. I could have diluted what Tesla was about, built a cheaper car, cut corners, played it safe, but I didn't. I doubled down on the mission, a car that wasn't just electric, but better than anything on the road, with a 250-mile range and zero compromises. I worked 20-hour days, put every dollar I had into it, and refused to let the fear of failure make me someone I'm not. And you know what? It worked. Not because everyone stayed, but because I stayed true to who I was and what I believed in. The right people, the ones who mattered, came back. They invested, they bought in, they believed. Now apply that to your life. Think about the last time you felt someone pulling away. Maybe a guy stopped texting as much, or a friend started acting distant. Your instinct was probably to lean in harder, send another message, make a grand gesture, prove you're worth their time. I've been there. When I was younger, I'd meet someone I liked, and if they started to drift, I'd think, I've got to fix this. I've got to show them I'm enough. I'd over-explain, overcommit, try to be what I thought they wanted, and every time it backfired. The more I gave, the less they valued it. Why? Because I was trading my own strength for their attention, and that's a losing deal every time. Here's the truth. People, especially men, are drawn to those who don't need them. Not the ones who play games or act cold, but the ones who are so anchored in their own purpose that they don't flinch when someone walks away. When I started the Boring Company, people thought it was a joke digging tunnels under cities. Come on, I could have spent all my energy convincing the skeptics, but I didn't. I focused on the mission, cutting traffic times from hours to minutes, making cities livable again. I let the doubters walk away, and I kept digging literally. And you know what? The world came around. Cities started talking to us, investors got curious, and the vision started to spread. Why? Because I didn't compromise who I was to chase their approval. Ladies, this is your superpower. You don't need to hold on to every person who crosses your path. You don't need to make everyone like you. What you need is to hold on to yourself, your dreams, your strength, your fire. When you do that, the right people will stay. The ones who don't, they weren't worth your time anyway. Think about the women you admire, the ones who leave a mark, who you can't stop thinking about. Are they the ones chasing everyone's approval, or are they the ones so focused on their own path that you can't help but want to follow? That's the woman you can be. The one who doesn't fear losing attention because she knows her worth isn't tied to who's watching. Let's get tactical, because I'm not here to just inspire you. I want you to walk away with something you can use today. The next time you feel someone pulling away, resist the urge to chase. If a guy goes silent, don't send a follow-up text to check in. If a friend starts taking you for granted, don't bend over backward to win them back. Instead, focus on your mission. What's your version of colonizing Mars? Maybe it's building your career, creating art, or just becoming the best version of yourself. Whatever it is, pour your energy into that. If he doesn't call, let him sit with his own silence. If she stops inviting you out, let her miss your presence. Show the world that your time, your energy, your heart, they're not free. They're earned. I'll give you a story from my life. When we were building the Gigafactory for Tesla, it was a bet the company move. We needed to produce batteries at a scale no one had ever tried, billions of watt hours a year. Everyone said it was too risky, too expensive, too crazy. I could have spent my days begging for support, explaining every detail to every skeptic. Instead, I focused on the goal, making electric cars affordable for everyone. I let the naysayers walk away, and I kept building. And you know what? The Gigafactory became a reality. Partners came on board, production scaled, and Tesla's stock soared. Why? Because I didn't let the fear of losing support make me lose sight of who I was and what I was building. In relationships, it's the same. When someone pulls back, it's not a sign you're not enough. It's a test of whether you'll stay true to yourself. When I was younger, I'd see a woman I liked start to drift, and I'd think, I've got to do something big to keep her. I'd plan elaborate dates, send long messages, try to prove I was worth her time. It never worked. But when I started focusing on my own goals, building PayPal, starting SpaceX, dreaming of Mars, I noticed something. The right people started chasing me. They saw someone who wasn't begging for attention, who was too busy building something extraordinary to worry about who was watching. And that's when they wanted in. Ladies, you can do this too. You don't need to fear losing someone's attention. What you should fear is losing the fire that makes you you. When you're so focused on your own path, whether it's your career, your passions, your growth, you become a force. You become the woman who doesn't chase, who doesn't beg, who doesn't compromise. And that's what makes people, men, friends, colleagues, see you as someone they can't afford to lose. It's not about being cold or distant. It's about being so anchored in your own purpose that you don't need anyone else to validate you. Here's your challenge. The next time you feel that pang of fear, fear that someone's slipping away, fear that you're not enough, flip the script. Ask yourself, am I staying true to my mission? If the answer is yes, keep going. If he doesn't call, let him go. If she doesn't see your worth, let her walk. Your value isn't in who stays, it's in who you are when no one's watching. When you live like that, when you refuse to trade your strength for someone else's attention, you become the kind of woman who doesn't just attract you, inspire. You become the one people chase, not because you're playing games, but because you're building something so extraordinary they can't look away. I'll leave you with this. When we launched the first Starship prototype, it wasn't perfect. It crashed, it burned, it failed spectacularly. But I didn't chase the world's approval. I didn't beg for them to believe in us. I stayed focused on the mission, making humanity multiplanetary, and every crash, every failure brought us closer to success. That's what I want for you. Don't fear losing attention. Fear losing yourself. Because when you hold on to who you are, when you live for something bigger than the moment, the world doesn't just notice you, it follows you. And that, ladies, is how you become unforgettable. All right, let's keep this engine roaring. I'm Elon Musk, and I've built my life on facing the impossible, whether it's landing rockets on floating platforms or turning electric cars into a revolution. But here's something I've learned that's just as critical as any engineering breakthrough. Life is full of tests, and the way you handle them defines who you are. Not just in business, not just in chasing big dreams, but in the way you show up in relationships, in the way you make people, especially men, see you as a force they can't ignore. Ladies, this isn't just about how I've navigated challenges to build SpaceX or Tesla. It's about how you can turn every test into a chance to shine, to prove your strength, to become the woman who doesn't just survive, but thrives under pressure. Let's dive in, because this is where you learn to turn the tables and make the world take notice. Picture this. You're in a moment where someone's pushing you, testing your limits. Maybe it's a guy who cancels plans last minute to see if you'll beg him to reschedule. Maybe it's a friend who throws a subtle jab to see if you'll crumble. Maybe it's a colleague who questions your work to see if you'll back down. These aren't just annoyances, they're tests. They're moments where the world is asking, who are you when the pressure's on? Will you bend or will you stand tall? I faced these tests my whole life. When we were trying to get the first Falcon 9 to orbit, the stakes were insane. One failure could have killed SpaceX. The media was waiting for us to crash, investors were sweating, and the clock was ticking. I could have panicked, made excuses, or tried to please everyone. Instead, I treated it like a test, not of our rocket, but of my resolve. We worked the problem, stayed calm, and launched again. And when we succeeded, it wasn't just a win for SpaceX, it was proof that I could handle the heat without breaking. Now, let's bring this to you. In relationships, tests come in all shapes and sizes. Maybe a guy goes quiet for a day, waiting to see if you'll flood his phone with texts. Maybe he mentions another woman to see if you'll get jealous. Maybe a friend pulls back to see if you'll chase their approval. Most people fail these tests. They react out of fear of losing someone, fear of not being enough. They send desperate messages, over-explain, or try to fix what isn't broken. I've been there. Early in my career, when I was younger and less sure of myself, I'd meet someone I liked, and if they tested me, went cold, canceled plans, played hard to get, I'd jump to prove myself. I'd send a long message, plan a big gesture, try to show I was worth their time, and every time it pushed them further away. Why? Because I was failing the test. I was showing them I was more invested in their approval than in my own strength. Here's the secret. Tests aren't traps, they're opportunities. They're your chance to show the world who you are when things get tough. When we were building the Model 3 at Tesla, production was a nightmare. We were missing deadlines, suppliers were failing, and the media was calling it production hell. Everyone was watching to see if I'd crack. I didn't. I slept in the factory, worked alongside my team, and focused on one thing, getting those cars out the door with zero compromises, 350 miles of range, faster than a sports car, built to last. That wasn't just a test of Tesla, it was a test of me. And by staying steady, by refusing to let the pressure break me, we came through. We didn't just deliver cars, we delivered a statement. We don't fold. Ladies, you face these tests every day. When a guy counsels on you, it's not just a scheduling conflict, it's a test of whether you'll chase him. When a friend goes quiet, it's a test of whether you'll beg for their attention. When someone questions your worth, it's a test of whether you'll defend yourself or stand tall. The old you might have reacted, sent that extra text, apologized for something you didn't do, tried to smooth things over. But the new you, the one who's ready to shine, you see these moments for what they are, your chance to prove you're not just another person scrambling for approval. You're a force, a woman with a mission, someone who doesn't need to chase because she's too busy building something extraordinary. Let's get tactical, because I'm not here to just throw ideas at you. I want you to walk away with tools you can use right now. The next time someone tests you, don't react. If a guy cancels plans, don't text back, no worries, when are you free? Say something simple like, cool, let me know. Then move on with your day. If a friend tries to make you feel small, don't argue or justify yourself. Smile, change the subject, and keep your focus on your goals. If someone at work questions your ideas, don't launch into a defense. Say, I hear you, here's why I think this works. Then let them sit with it. The key is to respond, not react. Responding comes from strength, reacting comes from fear. And when you respond with calm, with confidence, you pass the test not just in their eyes, but in your own. I'll give you a story from my life. When we started Neuralink, the idea of linking brains to computers sounded like something out of a sci-fi novel. The skeptics came out in droves, scientists, journalists, even some of my own team. They wanted me to justify every detail to prove it was possible before we'd even started. I could have spent years debating, writing papers, trying to convince them. Instead, I said, we're building it, you'll see. Then I got back to work. That wasn't just confidence, it was strategy. By refusing to get dragged into their doubts, I kept the focus on the mission. And you know what? People started paying attention. They saw someone who didn't need to prove himself, who was too busy building the future to argue about it. In relationships, it's the same. When someone tests you by pulling back, by doubting you, by trying to make you chase, don't take the bait. Stay focused on your mission, whether it's your career, your passions, or just becoming the best version of yourself. That's how you pass the test. Here's why this matters, especially for you, the women in the audience. You're taught to be nurturing, to keep everyone happy, to avoid conflict at all costs. And that's a beautiful strength, but it can also be a trap. When you're always the one fixing things, always the one chasing, you're telling the world your worth depends on their approval. But when you treat tests as opportunities, when you stand tall instead of scrambling, you send a different message. I'm here for something bigger than this moment. That's what I did with Starship. Every crash, every explosion was a test not just of the rocket, but of my resolve. And every time we got back up, we proved something. We're not here to play it safe. We're here to change the game. You can do the same. When someone tests you, don't see it as a threat, see it as your chance to shine. Here's your challenge. The next time you feel tested, whether it's a guy going quiet, a friend pushing your buttons, or a colleague doubting your worth, pause. Ask yourself, what would I do if I knew I was enough? Then do that. If he cancels, don't chase. Focus on your own goals. If she tries to make you feel small, don't defend yourself. Let your actions speak. If someone questions you, don't argue, show them. Every test is a chance to prove, not to them, but to yourself, that you're unshakable, that you're a woman with a mission, a force no one can ignore. When you live like that, when you turn every test into a moment to shine, you don't just attract attention, you command it. You become the woman people can't forget, not because you chase them, but because you showed them what strength looks like. I'll leave you with this. When we landed the first Falcon Heavy boosters, two of them side by side in perfect sync, it wasn't just a win for SpaceX. It was a win for every time we'd been tested, every time we'd been doubted, every time we'd refused to break. That's what I want for you. Don't fear the tests, embrace them. Because every time you stand tall, every time you refuse to chase, every time you choose yourself over someone else's approval, you're not just passing a test, you're building a legacy. And that, ladies, is how you become unstoppable. All right, we're at the finish line, but don't expect me to slow down. I'm Elon Musk, and I've spent my life chasing the impossible, building rockets that land themselves, cars that outrun gas guzzlers, and systems that might one day let your brain talk to computers. But here's the final piece of the puzzle, the one that ties it all together. If you want to leave a mark on the world, if you want to be the woman who lingers in people's minds long after you've left the room, you don't do it by giving them everything. You do it by becoming the one they have to figure out, the one they can't quite pin down, the one they can't forget. This isn't just about how I've built companies or turned heads. It's about how you, ladies, can become unforgettable, not by chasing attention, but by living a life so bold, so true to your purpose, that the world can't help but chase you. Let's close this out with a bang, because this is where you step into your power. Imagine this. You walk away from a conversation, a date, a meeting, and the other person is left thinking about you, not just for a minute, not just for an hour, but for days. They're replaying what you said, wondering what you meant, trying to piece together who you are. That's not an accident, it's a choice. It's the choice to live with such intensity, such focus, that you become a puzzle worth solving. When I started SpaceX, people didn't just buy into the idea of private rockets because I explained it well. They bought in because I lived it. I was all in, working 100-hour weeks, betting everything I had, refusing to back down even when the first three launches exploded. That commitment, that refusal to be anything less than my full self, made people want to be part of the journey. And ladies, that's what makes you unforgettable. Not what you say, not what you give, but how fiercely you live your truth. Let's talk about what this looks like in real life. You've met people who fade from your memory the second they're gone. They might have been nice, charming, even impressive in the moment, but they didn't stick. Why? Because they gave you everything up front. They told you their whole story, answered every question, left no mystery, no spark. Now think about the people who stayed with you, the ones you still think about, wonder about, maybe even check their social media at 2 a.m. They didn't give you everything. They gave you a piece, a glimpse of their passion, a hint of their strength, and left you wanting more. That's what I've done, not just in business, but in life. When I announced Starlink, I didn't lay out every detail of how we'd blanket the planet with internet. I said, we're connecting the world from space. Then I let the world imagine the rest. That's what kept them hooked. Journalists, investors, even competitors. They couldn't stop thinking about it because I didn't hand them the whole story. Now, apply this to you. In relationships, in friendships, in every interaction, you have the power to be the one who lingers. Not by playing games, not by being distant, but by being so fully yourself, so focused on your own mission that people have to work to keep up. When I was building Tesla, we were up against giants. The easy move would have been to mimic them, to build a safe, boring electric car that fit their mold. Instead, we built the Model S, a car that could hit 60 miles per hour in under 4 seconds, with a 300-mile range, and a design that turned heads. We didn't just build a car, we built a statement. And that statement, it stuck. People didn't just buy Teslas, they became part of a movement. In your life, you can do the same. Don't just be another person in the room. Be the woman who's building something, whether it's a career, a dream, a legacy that makes people want to be part of your story. Let's get real. Think about the last time you tried to make someone stay. Maybe it was a guy you liked and you thought, if I just show him how much I care, he'll stick around. Maybe it was a friend you bent over backward for, hoping they'd value you more. I've been there. Early on, I'd meet someone and think, if I show them all my big ideas, PayPal, SpaceX, the works they'll see, I'm worth their time. I'd overshare, overcommit, try to be what I thought they wanted. And you know what? It didn't work. The more I gave, the less they cared. Why? Because I was handing them my entire rosy cheeked sure, but I didn't give them the full picture. I didn't give them a reason to keep thinking about me. But when I started living for my mission building companies that could change the world, I stopped worrying about who was paying attention. And that's when people started paying attention. They saw someone who wasn't trying to please everyone, who was too focused on the goal to care about the noise. And that focus, that's what made them want to know more. Ladies, this is your power. You don't need to give everyone everything. You don't need to lay out your whole heart, your whole story to be seen. When you live with purpose, when you're chasing your own version of Mars, you become the one people can't forget. You become the woman they're texting at midnight, wondering why you're not chasing them, why you're so calm, so steady. I learned this with Neuralink. When we started, the idea of brain-computer interfaces was so out there, people thought it was science fiction. I didn't try to convince every skeptic. I said, this is the future, and kept working. That focus, that refusal to get bogged down in doubt made people curious. It made them want to be part of it. In your life, it's the same. When you're so committed to your own path, your art, your career, your growth, that you don't need anyone's validation, people notice, they wonder, they chase. Let's get tactical, because I'm not here to just inspire you. I want you to walk away with something you can use right now. The next time you're tempted to give too much time, too much energy, too much of yourself, pause, ask yourself, am I living for me or for them? If you're on a date and he's not giving you the attention you deserve, don't try harder to impress him. Focus on your own light, talk about your passions, but only enough to spark his curiosity. If a friend takes you for granted, don't pour more into them. Pull back, invest in yourself, let them miss you. If someone at work overlooks your contributions, don't beg for recognition. Let your work shine so brightly they can't ignore it. The key is to live so fully, so fiercely, that you don't need to chase anyone. You become the one they chase, because your life is a story they want to be part of. Here's a story from my life. When we launched the Cybertruck, the world wasn't ready. A bulletproof truck that looked like it rolled out of a dystopian movie? People laughed, mocked, said it was too weird. I could have toned it down, made it more conventional to please the crowd. Instead, I leaned in. I said, this is the future of tough. Then I let the truck speak, smashing windows, towing massive loads, going 0 to 60 inches under 3 seconds. The critics, they didn't just come around, they became obsessed. Why? Because we didn't compromise. We lived the vision, and that made it unforgettable. You can do this too. Don't water yourself down to fit someone else's expectations. Be the boldest version of yourself, whether you're painting, coding, teaching, or just living with purpose, and people will remember you not because you tried, but because you were undeniable. Here's the deeper truth. Being unforgettable isn't about being perfect. It's about being unapologetically you. When I started the Boring Company, people thought tunnels were a boring idea, pun intended. I didn't care. I saw a world where you could zip across the city in minutes, not hours. I lived that vision, worked the problem, and let the results speak. Now cities are lining up to talk to us. In relationships, it's the same. Don't try to be what someone else wants. Be so true to your own mission, your own 500 mile an hour hyperloop that they can't help but want to ride along. That's what makes you linger in their minds, not just for a night, but for a lifetime. Your challenge, the next time you feel the urge to be more available, more agreeable, more likable, stop. Live for your mission instead. Maybe it's building a business, creating art, or just becoming the woman you've always wanted to be. Whatever it is, pour yourself into it. Let your life be so bold, so vibrant, that people, men, friends, colleagues, can't stop thinking about you. Not because you gave them everything, but because you gave them a reason to want more. When you live like that, you're not just unforgettable, you're a force. A woman who doesn't just change the room, but changes the world. I'll leave you with this. When we landed Starship after years of crashes, it wasn't because we chased everyone's approval. It was because we lived for the mission-making humanity multiplanetary. That's what made the world watch, not just for a moment, but for years. That's what I want for you. Live so fiercely, so truly, that you become the one they can't forget. Not because you tried, but because you were you.